course, has been a prolific speaker, speaks on a lot of topics of management, motivation, labor codes, labor restructuring. So we'll be benefiting by his presence and his views. Then we have Mr. Zorawar Singh. He is the director and CEO of Olympus Management Consultancy Services Private Limited. He is an engineer by profession and a law graduate and an MBA in HR. He has experience in corporate world with 14 years of experience as an HR head of big corporate houses. His company advises currently Indian corporates on various topics related to labor laws, recruitment, and other stuff. So I welcome you, Zorawar. So I'll now request how we will be structuring this program. Anupam ji will be sharing his views on this topic, followed by Mr. Zorawar. And thereafter, we have received some questions, and if any questions are received during the course of the webinar, we'll take them. So I'll now request Anupam sir, if you can begin with your presentation.
Thank you, Ankit. Thank you very much. And there's a very sensitive topic we have come out with. I think there's a problem. There is a problem with your sharing.
Vivek, can we ask someone to run the presentation?
No, I think there's some problem with your system that like he was not being allowed to share his screen. Now he is being allowed to share his screen.
Vivek, check the sharing rights for Anupam sir.
Already given, sir.
Okay.
If you are facing any issues, Shivam can handle it.
Just a minute. Just a minute. In just a few seconds, I'll just get into this. Share. हाँ?
उसमें क्लिक कर दो जो वहाँ है सेंटर में
हाँ
बस नीचे आ गया होगा ना
शेयर
अब खोल दो डेस्कटॉप पे जाके प्रेजेंटेशन पे जाओ
Yes.
Is it visible now?
yes
Just run it on a slideshow. Yes.
Okay, slideshow is visible, right?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everybody. We've gone through a lot of law and overdose of law. And somewhere we do not think of proper management, and sometimes we do not think of compliance of laws. But here is a topic in which you need both, and you have to be very good at it. Let me start with the law itself first. The law on retrenchment and closure or restructuring in a crisis to reduce liabilities is actually, the principal law is Industrial Dispute Act. We all know it. But there is a misconception that the law doesn't help. Let me say that it is the best guide. You need to know your parameters beyond which you cannot go. Law is only the outer bounds of conduct in the society. Much more needs to be done within. I will prove this. Now, coming directly to the provisions, the service sector is not covered by any kind of problem. No permission of the government is required. That is why you see service sector, layoff, pink slip, all this is what? This is because a permission of the government is not required. Whereas service sector is actually 60% of the GDP. It's very important. But then the service sector is very, very fragile. Any interference by the government would really kill the sector. But in the manufacturing units, you have very long drawn out relationship and a strong establishment and permanence of working, sort of a continued working is very necessary. Once you have established a manufacturing unit, you just can't really change things at the spur of the moment. Now there also, permission of the government is required for retrenchment and closure only if 100 or more workers are working in the establishment. But that has been amended to 300 in Haryana and few other states. But let me add here that in the IR code, this limit has been fixed at 300 itself. We took care during the drafting, the structuring of the new IR code, but till the IR code comes, the basic remains the same, that permission for layoff, retrenchment and closure is required. Now, less than 100 or 300 workers, whatever the case may be, retrenchment and closure is simple. Junior most worker in any category goes first. And relevant, kindly note the relevant sections which you can read later on. 25F deals with the notice to be given and before retrenchment and the compensation to be given. That is about 15 days wages per annum worked. And 25G and H is again critical. 25G means first come, last go. And when you have to re-employ, please note this, I'm going to refer to this section again, that suppose you opened up again, then the senior most will come back first. That is H, 25H. And this is a bone of contention. Because many places, if restructuring is done, you don't need the old worker, you need new fresh blood, and you need technically qualified people, etc., etc. I'll touch this topic during, but you remember the 25G and H. Catch here is this only. Now, above 100 or 300, as the case may be, an application has to be made out giving justification with supporting record that the requirement is genuine. The sections are 25N for retrenchment and 25O for closure. Now there is another section, it's very elaborate actually. That's why I said it is the best guide. More than 50 workers, less than 50 workers, you don't need to talk about anything. You have to simply comply with 25F. That's it. And GNH, yes, but again, more than 50 and less than 100, you need to read 25FFA. You have to give reasons. Why are you closing down, and intimation has to be given to the government. Provision for unavoidable closures. Now this is very tricky. If we look at the section, it's very interesting that compensation, the compensation has been restricted to emergent closures. The amount to be given is as 25F. Certainly you can close down, but in this case, the control of the employer, the compensation to pay to the worker under section 25 shall not exceed an average pay of 3 months. Just interesting. The compensation has been restricted. Why? Because this is an emergent closure. Can you imagine the help of the support of the law? And we say the law is not supporting. But in the case of emergent closures, simply saying that I am into financial difficulties or losses is not sufficient. Accumulation of undisposed stocks is not allowed. The expiry of period of lease or license, this has to be planned well in advance. In case where the undertaking is engaged in mining operation, that's a different issue. But then you have to, look at this, that you can't manipulate. Emergent closure is an emergent closure. Say, for example, some kind of natural calamity, some kind of fire accident, which becomes impossible to run the unit. So then 25FFF will apply, and the law supports them. The law supports the employer that you don't have to give the entire amount, you have to give less. So as I said, law is the best guide. It helps. Now let us understand what exactly we need to focus in the legal part. How to plan and execute retrenchment closure in a crisis to reduce liabilities. What is the exigency requiring drastic action like layoff, retrenchment or closure? You have to explain that. Now in the case of the COVID, I had just every day I was busy on the phone. People asking, "Ke sahab, ab kya kare? Ab kya kare?" Very simple. Layoff with its grammatical variation in cognate expression means the failure, comma, refusal or inability of an employer on account of shortage of coal, power, raw material or the accumulation of stocks or the breakdown of machinery or natural calamity. Please note this, in section 2 triple K, the definition of layoff itself is very clear. Or natural calamity or for any other connected reason to give employment to a workman whose name is borne on the muster roll of his establishment and who has not been retrenched. So it is very simple. So I advise everybody to pay off the workers, give them half the salary, and after 45 days, it's a deemed retrenchment. You have to retrench. In the service sector, it was not a problem. It was more of actually the employers are not ready to simply close down. It was a horrible situation. But then when you follow the law, the workers are happy, you are comfortable that we didn't violate and there's no bad taste. That is very important because maintaining a reputation today is so important because you don't get skilled workers at all. So you have to maintain a rapport with your workers. So then retrenchment or closure. Do we have documentary proof record to support the reasons? Suppose I am saying that I have to retrench a particular section that I have no work for that. So I retrench the worker and I'll have to shut down the part closure or part retrenchment or reduce work. Reduction in work, you need retrenchment. For total absence of work, you need closure. So you have to prove it with your documentation. Do we need the permission of the government for such actions? Yes. What is the procedure to be followed if the permission of the government is not required? As I said, simply give a notice, give the compensation, advance notice, advance payment. Not that you pay later on. No. Before the date of, last date of working or the end of the notice period, the payment must be made in advance. And if it is a retrenchment, then first come, last go. The seniors will be retained, the juniors will go first. Then what is the procedure to be followed for seeking the permission of the government when required? You have to have all these documentation ready. The application very clearly prescribed in the rules of the Industrial Dispute Act. The application is simple. You have to make annexures. For example, what is the reason? You have to fill up a form. After that, you have to annex. What are the reasons? Not only that the business has collapsed, you have to explain what all you did for reviving the business. It is just not simply that you wish away. I have done this and done this. I can't run the business, finished. No. The interesting part is, normally the governments don't give the permission. You know why? Because it's all politicized. The unions are a political instrument. But interestingly, the courts have come to the rescue of the industry. The governments have been rejecting the application for closure and arrangement because there is a portion in 25(0) that the merits have to be considered and genuineness and adequacy of the reasons stated by the employer has to be the interest of the general public and all other relevant factors by order have to be listed out. That public interest has also been taken into consideration. Now this is where normally the governments reject the application for closure. Let me say that again, the courts have come to the rescue of the industry. And if you go to the Google the case law, you will find out that the courts have supported the industry and struck down such whimsical orders, politically motivated orders by the government rejecting the application of the industry. Now it is your skill of making an application, providing the best of information to the government and seeking the permission. That why we have done it. We are at the last ebb. The losses are astronomical. We have tried hard, we could not revive it, and or that particular buyer is finished. There have been, the buyers have finished. I mean, the collapsed. So what do we do? If the buyer has collapsed, I can't sell my wares. I don't have any other clientele. So then you have to prove it that I don't have any other buyer, and the business is finished. Then you will get the permission. And if they don't, if the government does not give you, go to the court, you get it. What are the limitations and re-emerging liabilities? As I said, these are limitations are there. Definitely the government has other issues also. And sometimes it's political, sometimes it's law and order, sometimes public interest. That public interest cannot be simply said public interest. It has to be specified. What is the public interest? That is where the courts have come crashing down on such orders. The re-emerging liabilities are that if you open up again, you have to take those same workers back. You have to call them to join back. Now, here is a catch. Suppose you have reopened the industry with some new technology, and the old workers were not capable of working on those technologies. Your strategy and wisdom is going to work more than the law. You have to plan what is the kind of money I have given out. If the worker has to be brought back, mind you, the pay is not protected. Suppose your workers were being paid very high. When you start afresh, those scales will not stand. The pay is not protected. But on the other hand, the simple catch that you have to employ the same workers is very difficult. Many times, or most of the time, when the industry is revived, new technologies, new machinery, and everything is new is brought in. Then, if such a plan is there in the mind of the management, then the question is whether offering a VRS is a better option. Yes. Because if you pay a little bit extra and tell the workers that this is the VRS, I'm giving 45 days, 70, 60 days, 75 days, 90 days per annum work. And if you don't take it, you will be retrenched. I have the permission. I've done this exercise. Many in industry have gone through this. I'm eyewitness to it. I've been party to all these actions. And if the worker does not take a VRS, he's doomed. He'll go for retrenchment and he'll just get nothing. So normally the workers are wise enough to accept more money and go away. And they are going to look for a job, and that's not a problem. Now, big question occurs. How do you compute the offering for a VRS? I don't want to comment, but then it's very compelling. Most of my friends in the profession do not know where did the number 45 days per annum work come when the early days of fashion of VRS. Public sector, entire public sector, you had offered 45 days per annum worked. Why? Is this something to do with astrology or numerology? Where do you get this 45 days per annum worked figure? Look inside. None of you know it. People don't know it. I've done my research. Let me tell you, in the Western world, the retrenchment compensation or the compensation for closure is at the rate of 45 days. The notice which you give of 1 month, no, there you have to give 6 months notice or notice pay. In Eastern Europe, it is up to 1 year. You have to give 1 year wages plus 45 days per annum worked, and then you can fire the worker out. But then retrenchment is much easier because you can pay the worker and let them go. But then 45 days succeeded in the public sector. It did not succeed largely in the private sector. That's my experience and observation. Then there were, I don't want to name the companies, there were companies which, the tractor company which brought in, first there was 45, then there was 60, then there was 75, 3 VRS. I've seen 3 VRS, successive VRSs, one after the other in the years, and it worked. The higher you go, but then there are other things which I'm going to touch upon. The VRS is again two types. One is the last part, backward and the forward. Backward is number of years worked and you pay per annum worked. Suppose you have an older population and you have just 3 years or 4 years or 5 years to go. Larger population is old. Then you pay them for the years left over. I've seen companies which pay the entire wages for 3 years. Left over, take the money, go. Anybody will go. 1 year left, 2 years left, take the money and go. That is backward is forward. But then there is another method of differential calculation of slabs and stages. The younger people need a different incentive. The older people need a different incentive. The issues on the other side are very different. And in each case, you have to have the factors in your hand and understood very clearly and the strategy laid out very clearly and address the sensitivities of the workers. I come to the next topic. Issues and liabilities for transfer of undertaking for mergers. This is a separate topic I'm talking about. I have not touched this in the earlier count. Today, the entire gamut of new labor codes is focused on the flexibility of working. Profit, business is based on profits and skills. In a flexible organization, the speed at which change is taking place is very difficult to understand. Companies getting sold out, mergers, acquisitions, strategic acquisitions. It is not only slump sale, it is about strategic acquisition or selling off in a market. I've set up a unit, I don't want to do it, I want to go, I want to quit, I want to set up another unit, but it is not loss making, so it is not a slump sale. Then please note that section 25FF of the Industrial Food Act will apply. The workers have to be paid off as if retrenched. As if retrenched, please note, it is a discharge, not a retrenchment. They are paid as if retrenched in accordance with the provision of 25F. But if the workers are to be retained by the new employer with the same condition of service, then no such payment is to be made. Now see, this is very interesting. In the case of Philips in Calcutta, they sold off a unit to some other business and they followed it. The workers were simply handed over with the same terms and conditions. And the unions in Calcutta, they contested it. They can't sell me out like this. They went to the High Court that this was not proper. They should have taken the workers into confidence. The union says this is wrong. The High Court says no, the provisions of section 25FF have been followed. There is no problem. There is no change in the conditions of working, conditions of service. Therefore, there is nothing wrong. The union went to the Supreme Court and they said, see, I am not a bonded labor. My right to livelihood under the Constitution includes my right to choice of employer. Be very careful. Supreme Court says yes. The right to livelihood includes choice of employer. He says it was for the Philips company to give an option that if a person does not want to continue with the new employer, he will take his full and final as if retrenched. So the matter was that handing over was quashed. Supreme Court came down. Now with this case law of Philips and Calcutta High Court and with the Supreme Court, your financials in the mergers and acquisitions have changed completely. All those who are dealing with mergers and acquisitions in the company's profession of company secretary, they must note that the financials have to be worked out by calculating the offering to the worker. You will have to offer, and if the workers are prepared to not prepared to work with the new employer, they will have to be paid off. So you have to be more wise than legal. What are the instances of an agreement to sell? this has to be incorporated in the agreement to sell, that on what terms you are selling, whether the liability of the workers will be carried forward or not, or they'll be paid off by the seller. What is the law? There is a strong union contesting the move. As I said, there is a change. But in the normal course, if you have made out notices very well, given an option to the workers that they may take their full and final dues, then there will be no problem. Now, is there a liability with the new employer to re-employ the workers discharged by the old employer? No, this is very, very, very tricky. This judgment of in the case of Navarathis by the Supreme Court, they said that entire company has been taken over, not the unit alone. Navarath is a pharmaceutical company. Entire business has been taken over, and a particular unit has been closed down. The workers have been paid off. But if it has been started again, the worker says, I have a lien. Worker says, I have a lien. This is how. Well, it is not only the unit, the entire business, the brand. All the employees of the company have a lien on the entire concept of the company. Now, that is a very tricky judgment. And you have to go through it in case you are going to buy a company or buy a unit. Or when you are selling a company, company means maybe more units. Or you are selling only one particular unit, then there will be no liability. But if you are selling a company, the workers will have a lien on the company and they can ask for, if it is started again, they will ask for re-employment. Again, the catch there is the pay is not protected. What all are the essential paperwork to be done? As I said, that your, first of all, agreement to sell has to be very clear on this count. Then you have to be very clear on, in your notice, that you have to offer an option for taking full and final dues, and those who will not take the full and final till a particular date, they will be simply transferred with the same conditions of service to the gain. When and how is VRS a better option? Again, as I said, in the case of Navarathis, if they would have given, instead of being greedy and running through whatever, they could have given a VRS, and there would not have been a liability to reinstate the workers, re-employ the workers. So again, one has to be very, very strategic, and a thumb rule will not apply. Do not have any sweeping format in your mind to deal with every situation with the same stick. No, the yardstick will be different. The strategy will be different. The financials will be different. So you have to be more wise. Coming to the next. HR restructuring to adapt to the requirement of business process reengineering or to strengthen skill sets to improve productivity. Now, here is a case. Suppose there is a garment unit, and the garment unit is supplying garments, ready-made garments in very fancy packaging, properly done, labeled, and etc., etc. And the buyer suddenly says, no, this is an extra load. I don't want the packaging. You simply put it in a plastic bag and give it to me. That's it. Now that entire packaging unit will go. Now what do? You have to be very careful. I don't want to use the name, but then there's a refrigerator manufacturing unit in Faridabad. All will understand. When it was taken over by the American company, the present company, they saw that the new technologies come in for freezing unit, according to Kyoto new environment norms, and chlorofluorocarbons, carbon gases were banned. So the intellectual property right, the manufacturer of the freezer unit was somewhere out. Different person. They were not in a position to manufacture it. Compressor was not their forte. They sold the compressor unit to some other company making only compressors, and the plastic molding portion of the refrigerator was again, plastic molding is not my business. They gave it to another company. Now, 3 processes were offloaded, and the refrigeration unit was making only assembling refrigerators, buying components and assembling it. The compressor unit was definitely closed down, and they were offered VRS. They did not take it, and ultimately, because the union was very strong, they offered a amount. They did not agree. Ultimately, the application was made, and it was the simple alibi was that technology is changing. We cannot use chlorofluorocarbons. We are not in the business of manufacturing compressors. Somebody else is going to do it. And the workers were retained. The unit was closed down. Even the plastic unit, the workers kept on struggling, the normal way of trade unions, because the union was very strong and they wanted to assert themselves. It did not work. Ultimately, the workers who took VRS were happy, and those who were in the unions, they were on the road. So it was not only a VRS or not only a closure, it was a mixed strategy. The technology has changed. You have to offload some manufacturing process. It is redundant, it is surplus, or introduction of a new process. The assembly line, a larger assembly line was introduced, and you needed qualified people. The old people were paid off. A massive VRS was offered, not once, 3 times, and the whole HR gamut of HR structure was overhauled. Old manpower took the money and went away. New manpower was taken up. They were given good scales, and entire working was changed. There are insider, outsiders to resist the process of training and change of business process re-engineering. You will always have such people in every organization who will oppose your, working or your actions, your plans, your strategy. You have to take care of them. But in the normal course, if there is some change, you have to be careful that if conditions of working are changed, then Section 9A of the Industrial Dispute Act applies or not. Do not change the conditions of service without giving a notice under Section 9. But well, the management has ultimately to assert itself, be sure, be clear of the strategy, do the skill mapping of workers, and those who do not fit into the new framework will have to be shifted up, down, sideways, and or out. I'm sure people understand what it means. Somebody is a very good at team making, make him a manager. He is very intelligent and is going to be a pain of a leader. If he remains in the leadership, he'll be a pain. Make him a manager. Chalega. Put him on one side, put him down, put him in a work which is not in the mainframe, not technical. He'll have to leave. Move him sideways in some other work, or out. Out by retrenchment, out by VRS, out by transfer. You have to be very clear. You do not violate the law. And you use everything. But you must assert yourself. As I said, VRS is an important tool. I have seen the success of VRS n number of times. But social dialogue is a master key. If you want to avoid conflict, be very sure that if you are transparent with your workers, you tell them everything, explain everything, tell them that these are the inevitable changes, and these are the options for taking benefit of the change. If you have some skills where you can fit in, you fit in. If you cannot, you go out. You'll be transferred out. Sometimes where you have very rigid attitude, you also call VRS as CRS. So people are compelled to leave. Compulsory retirement scheme. Yes, it is protested, but the management has to assert itself without being, having a malified attitude. They must assert themselves. Next is induction of new technologies. As I said, this is a mixed bag. A totally new technology has been brought in. This is the place where a large number of people go out. Now look at Twitter. And the new boss simply threw people out. Was it technology? No. It was only restructuring. But when you have new products coming in, new technologies, and you have a trained skilled worker which was trained over the years but does not have technical qualification, then there arises a limitation to their continuation in the employment. New workers have to be recruited, different qualification and terms and conditions of service, opportunity for change of skill set levels. What to do with the old workers? Does the law help in any manner? What is the human angle? You have to, again, the management has to assert itself. Skill mapping of workers. Those who do not fit into the new framework will have to be shifted up, down, sideways, and out. Those who are not qualified have to normally go out in the new technologies when they are introduced in any manufacturing unit. Again, VRS is a very important tool, and social dialogue is a master key. If you tell a worker that you don't fit in, you are not qualified, you are not able to take up, a diploma holder is required. I know an earth moving unit in Faridabad. The old workers were not able to adapt to higher technology. They started hiring B.Tech, full-fledged qualified engineers on the multi-station CNC lathes, CNC machines. The old workers had to go out because new technology, new things had to be brought in. The old workers were slowly phased out. They were not, somebody's taking VRS good enough, but they were not taking any new workers of ITI level. They were taking not even diploma level, they're taking B.Tech engineers for running their high-tech machines. Yes, again, the VRS was useful, the social dialogue was useful, and there was no conflict. There was no problem with the workers, and the makeover, the changeover was achieved very successfully. I'll summarize these things. Restructuring to address recurring industrial relations problems. Now, here is the issue, which is very, very sensitive. If you don't have good working conditions, I can give you data from 1967 of Haryana that if the safety provisions are not complied with, there will be reaction. The number of strikes was exactly the same graph as number of accidents. Till the 1990s, when the employers started being sensitive, and the number of accidents reduced, and similarly the number of strikes. That means the insecurity was the cause of workers getting together to protest against the workers, the management. Be very clear in your mind whenever you have a union formation or some kind of violence. I don't want to name the companies, invariably there is misbehavior, wrong conduct, overbearing attitude of the management, and unions are formed. And if that continues, then there is violence, there is conflict. You have to assess the magnitude of the problem and the impact. Is there an external or extraneous reason? I'm not saying there may not be an external union reason. Yes. Entire Maharashtra, you have the Shiv Sena. All the units run by Shiv Sena unions, all unions run by Shiv Sena. And I was shocked to see that the unit level unions are not registered under the Trade Union Act. Unit committee, shockingly. And they also have something called the Maharashtra Registration of Trade Union and Prevention of Unfair Labor Practice Act. And you have an industrial court. What the hell are you going to do with a union which is not registered? Under that act, a union means a union registered under the Trade Union Act. Very rampant in Maharashtra that you have a unit level committee of Shiv Sena, which is not registered. It is not a registered trade union. And if it is not a registered trade union, it is not a body corporate under section 13 and it does not have the privileges of a registered trade union. What can the management do anything against it in an industrial court when the union is not even registered? So you have to deal with the extraneous and external forces in the way it has to be. You have to be very careful in dealing with them. And you have to play a game of chess while dealing with them. Remedy to deficiency of work management, and then you have to, if you have a problem with the industrial relation, remedy the situation. Why the problem is there? And if still you have some bad elements, then you deal with them. If there's indiscipline, you have to deal with them. Let the most of the workers be contacted, understand through social dialogue what is the problem. Remedies if the reasons are internal, individual, or a group. Remedies if the reasons are extraneous and external. These are different remedies. Each one has to be planned and very carefully executed so that you don't get in conflict with the workers and create problems long term and create, spoil your whole working. In general, how to practically do it? You have to have HR mapping, qualification, analysis of reasons for recurring industrial problems, the choice of right remedy, extraneous and external, listing out workers, opinion makers to support the plan of the management. It's not just that you make the plan and it's going to be through. No. You have to have people on your side. The workers who are intelligent, people who have been remedied, they have a problem and you have helped them out. Then you tell them to fall in line. And if you are going to do real restructuring or drastic changes or VRS or retrenchment, you have to create push factors and pull factors. Push means reduced working, say 4 days working, 3 days working. Big gaps. Sit at home and you pay. Or you reduce the facilities by giving those which are not statutory or which were not conventional, or some off and on facilities were given, cut them down. Or if there is a condition of service, then you can reduce them by giving a notice under 21 days notice under section 9 of the ID Act. And create a pull factor by giving incentives to leave the factors to leave the unit, except the BRS, except the retrenchment. You have to list out managers and workers, also those managers who may be guiding the workers in the shop floor. Somewhere to run the shop floor managers develop a symbiotic relationship with the workers. And when there is some kind of situation, those managers will be helping them and guiding them wrongly. You have to remove them first. Talk of the workers later on. First, you remove those managers who are going to be helping them. So it is when you go for a major overhaul, first you remove the shop floor managers or change them or do an overhauling of the managers and then do the workers. Then the grapevine of the inevitable. You have to spread the word that this is going to happen. Social dialogue is there, and gradually come to the grapevine that this is the deadline and this is going to happen. And ultimately, announcement of the transfer, promotion, punishment, posting, and VRS. Whatever strategy you have adopted, planned with all the calculations, pros and cons, whether it's a transfer out, it's a promotion, somebody is very intelligent, very team maker, and you make him a manager, and then you have punishment those who are not incorrigible, and posting out, and ultimately the VRS. If you create the right conditions, people will accept the VRS. That's not a problem at all. Strategic HR restructuring for any purpose is possible with wisdom strategy, and by addressing the sensitivities of the workers for success within the scope of law. I again insist, the law is the best guide. Social dialogue has to be transparency, objectivity, sensitivities. You'll tell your issues and listen to the issues of the workers. Social dialogue, you need a full-fledged session on social dialogue. I've been working on this, done a lot of research on social dialogue. How do you conduct it? I can show you a number of companies who have done it very, very successfully. Transparency is the key word. Objectivity is the big pillar, and addressing the sensitivity is the pathway. Workshop for financial education. Now, this is a very, very, very important factor. That if you are offering a VRS, first create a demand for the money you are going to offer. Not that the workers may flitter it out into the funny kind of uses, or going for betting, wasting the money. You have to teach those workers, tell them how to use the money. So the kind of workshops I conducted, there were factories who did it, the exercise of social dialogue or VRS. Initially, they failed very badly. They've got a very bad name. I don't want to name the companies. But the second and third VRS, when they conducted the financial education workshops, and the workers, it was a super success. The workers were very happy. The money was very well utilized. Support and guidance for our professional mobility of workers is another key to success. If there are workers who have different talent or skills, may not be useful for you, but help them get employment somewhere else, or in your unit, in some other factory, or some other vendor, or wherever. It is the job of the HR to get a job for them, employment for the workers elsewhere. The HR has to guide the workers for professional mobility. These are very, very important factors, and not one particular issue. As I said, the law is only the guide. There are various issues. Why you are going for restructuring, what you are going to do, and how you are going to do it. You're going to address the sensitivities of the workers. You are telling your whole, and in a transparent manner. Lastly, I come to a topic which is very, very sensitive and is going to be sensitive in the coming future. Strategic HR restructuring to benefit from the advantages of new labor codes. You see, there are various factors here. I'll just touch only a few and then hand over the matter to Zorawar, my colleague here, who is going to comment on these. He will give you details on this, and also give his comments on my presentation, his experiences of practically doing it. Let me say, Zorawar is a master negotiator. He has a solution to anything and everything. That's my experience with him. The first thing we hit here in the new labor laws is, in the section 2P of Occupational Safety Code, there is a definition of core functions and non-core functions. Contract labor is not permitted in core functions. What do you do? Whereas we are talking about new labor codes for flexibility of working. No permission of government is required for layoff, retrenchment, closure up to 299 workers, only 300 and above, as I said just now. You have fixed term employment. Then you have issue of equal remuneration clause, which is gender neutral. Deployment of women labor in the night. Wage structures to be objective. Wage code, social security benefits, direct liability of third party on principal employer. I will hand over the baton to my colleague here. Thank you very much, and God bless India. We have a lot of homework to do on this. Good luck to you all for applying your mind on any changes you want to do. I wish you the best of luck, and I request you to all keep all these factors in mind. Over to Zorawar.
Thank you, Anupamji. Thanks for, I think, touching almost all the points, which was the subject matter of today's topic. What I understand from your presentation, I think ERS is a key thing in all the kinds of restructuring, where we don't want to continue with the labor or we need to introduce new technology. Let's now hear from Mrs. Zorawar.
Yes.
This topic.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Malik told me that I have to critically comment on his presentation, which is a strange thing to do. He has been in this profession doing basically this job for now 25 years plus, doing exactly this work over and over again. So how can I really comment on his experiences and direct knowledge of law? But then I am trying to visualize it from a different manner. Let me see, as a practitioner, HR practitioner, as a HR person, how I view this, what he has said so far. So again, I have written the role of HR beyond the legal rigmarole. He has already explained us in detail the judgments, the sections which are there, and the process which is to be followed. I have also said that how HR can be hand-holding closures and mergers and acquisitions. So what I'll be doing is I'll be just summarizing, which he has already said from the bird's eye view of an HR manager or a person who is managing people in this setup. As we understand, he has quoted sections from Industrial Disputes Act, which is the only act, and we believe that closures, mergers, layoff, retrenchment, all are a baby of Industrial Disputes Act. And be no idea completely well, we don't require anything else. But then he also talked something about Trade Unions Act, Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act, notice of change, how to deal with it. And that's why the new code which has come up, the IR code, has merged all these acts into it, because in fact, the closure, merger, layoff, retrenchment, or any change in the setup is not a function of only single code, but it involves a couple of codes together. And the ultimate objective of the act is maintenance of peaceful work culture and the protection of job. From whom? From whims and fancies. So when we say the production of job by giving notice to people, by following a process to lay off, retrench, or transfer people from one to another, and to give them a protection from whims and fancies. Whims and fancies means you cannot just think one night that tomorrow I won't be working. We don't allow Elon Musk's here under our codes to work in this manner. However, as is already pointed out, that in service sector, we still have a gray area where it is much simpler to curtail the manpower, but still last come, last in, first go principle has to be followed even there, which is not very clearly being followed so far in the service sector, because perhaps so far the codes were not, the acts were silent about it, but the new IR code is bringing in its ambit the service sector, the marketing sector, the sales sector. We all know that the Constitution gives us a right to employer to retrench surplus labor, and it's my inherent right to manage my business. So where is the key? If I have inherent right to do away with surplus labor, I can do it by, as I understood, layoff, permanently retrenchment, closure of undertaking. But then I heard a very interesting example when he was talking about one company outsourcing entire one section of plastic manufacturing to a third-party vendor. So is there a loophole or a bypass available in law where if I want to close down a section of troublemakers, say I just outsource that product to next door company and say, okay, this is closed from my side, and say bye-bye to them. Can it? And then if the we have also to see why and when do these disputes start emerging, and at that scale that we suddenly feel that there is a resistance, we need a restructuring. Why it is always sudden? Is HR a silent spectator and let it come to that why and when, that it suddenly realizes, oh, tomorrow there is a strike call? What happens? What leads to that situation? Why are we not able to handle it before it happens? Then when it comes to closure, transfer of undertakings, one thing that comes to mind is that, okay, it is regarding business, we're going to shut down, we are profitable. This topic doesn't, is not of my interest, or I'm just there because though it is for the academic thing. No, the question is, can a status quo exist? Can you ride a bicycle without paddling? ECG has to be going up and down for a healthy organization, not a flat line. Plus, now the technology is rapidly changing. This is one part. And we have to at least maintain this ratio of value addition divided by salary cost. It's more visible in call centers, because in call center, there's a caller. And a telecaller is available, a fresher at 12,000 and a person with experience of 3 years at 18,000. Doing the same job. So value addition divided by salary cost, that ratio every year with every year's increment keeps on decreasing. I have to maintain that. And in fact, if we look at the peaceful mandate given by the Act and the collective bargaining and the union and negotiations which our HR people are doing, most of the companies which we come across during restructuring now, when I have been joining Mr. Malik and doing that, are the companies which suddenly, because of their goodwill, have created a salary of workers which is currently 5 times the minimum wage. And the factor of value addition divided by salary cost is going haywire. So to balance it out, now they're hiring a contract labor at 1/5 the cost. So that 6 contract labor and 1 on labor, the ratio remains same, so that they are maintaining an average value addition divided by salary cost factor. So question is that in the call center or in any other place, when we feel that every year we have to, under pressure or under collective bargaining or under arm twisting or under goodwill or under HR being incompetent, not able to convey the value addition divided by salary cost factor to the union or to people, is increasing the salaries, there should be some automatic system of promoting vertical or lateral. Vertical means, as Mr. Malik has already pointed out, promote to a supervisor or to a manager, so that either the person keeps growing accordingly along with the wage increase or salary increase is getting, or lateral means to the neighboring unit, to the neighboring industry, to his own business outside. Lateral means outside the company. So if this ratio is not being maintained, it goes out. The example of call center, which I am saying, that while doing restructuring for one call center, we gave them a proposal that first year we'll give everybody an increment of 30%. Second year we'll give them increment of 15%. And every year this increment will reduce to the half. So fourth year, employees are getting an increment of only 3.5%, while the first year employees are getting an increment of 30%. And they have been given an automatic system of exit. And this is one part. Second, he's talking about social dialogue. So I'm saying, why social dialogue? Along with, we should have a formal counseling. Counseling of what? Keeping employees prepared for what? To embrace change, that we can change anytime. Things are going to change anytime. If you exit, what will happen? When he says that workers should have regular classes on financial management or alternate source of income, what he's saying? He's saying, let them be mentally prepared to exit. Or when they exit, they don't feel bad about exiting because they know the alternate mechanism of earning money. However, our collective bargaining system or talking to unions in a good hanky-dory manner, workers which are currently getting, for example, in one company recently, I saw the machine operator being given 95,000 per month. That person exiting will be very painful vis-a-vis a machine operator who is getting 15,000, because once he goes out, he'll get a similar job, but 95,000 worker will not get a similar job. So in fact, we are doing the reverse. We are making employees unprepared to exit, which we need to have a relook again, looking at this, the entire system. Then every company has a product maturity curve and ups and going downs. And there is always change in manufacturing lines. I worked with one company which is into PCB assembly units. Earlier, we had component insertions on PCB. An entire line of 100 workers doing insertion of components to the PCB. But suddenly we had automatic insertion machines in place. So what do we do with these people? We just hired a unskilled who were supposed to be doing insertion. Now they are not required because they don't know the soldering, welding, or machine operations. What do we do? So if we had regularly, we are regularly counseling them and they knew this change has to happen, either they have to upgrade or they have to go out. So if it is not sudden, it becomes happier in future. Then I wrote constant training. Then after training, I cut, because training is most misunderstood word. When we tell HR to, complete their training targets, they give all sorts of training, left, right, center, goodwill trainings, life skill trainings, and other such things. When we are asking of training, we say skill alignment. And what is skill alignment? Skill alignment to minimize the redundancy. So if these workers, for example, in call center or in that PCB assembly unit, we are giving them a skill alignment training. So moment the automatic insertion machine comes, or moment they reach 3 years of telecalling experience, they are well qualified for the next or different category of job. This is what it means. The new codes also are supporting what I am saying. They promote genuine collective bargaining and are also giving a confidence of employer to hire with flexibility and to fire with flexibility. And with the same thing has been a major cause of litigation and inefficiency in sorting disputes. So again, I'm asking how collective bargaining has shaped future of industry so far. We can see that collective bargaining has been shaping in the sense that that is what is leading to, in fact, the closure and transfer of undertakings, because we have promised to people some things for the future also, which our business models are not competent or modeled enough to fulfill with the time. All from the HR point of view, all recipes, all dishes which we want to dish out need preservatives or regular stirring so that it has a larger shelf life. Same happens in our organization. In IR, we need to have mapping reasons, a team who is mapping reasons that why conflicts are happening, why problems are happening, and map reasons. Are they internal, external? And if they're internal, what is the mens rea? Why it is happening internally? What is the thought process? What is triggering it? Is it my supervisor who is triggering it? Is it somebody else who is triggering it? And it is external. So what is the interest of outside union or outside neta or outside politician in my organization? Why it is happening? So as a preemptive, proactive approach, The IS should also should have a team which is doing all this mapping and making a MIS like this. And as he has earlier also said, that we also need to have a MIS of positive supporters in the organization, people who are supporting the cause of managers, supervisor, management, already know and ready to exit and ready to embrace change. And there are people who are resistance creator. Why they are resistance creator? Who are the resistance creators? We should have a complete list of those peoples, and we should see how to use them, or when the social dialogue or change has to happen, won't it be a good idea to first move them, remove them, take them out of the system before we start the change? Because if resistance creator is not there, everything is going to be smooth. Again, he has talked about pushing to insecurity and pulling out with incentives. Pushing to insecurity means we, with the social dialogue and trainings and trainings and skill alignments, people should know that business is changing. Anytime my unit, my line, or my section is going to get redundant, and they should be insecure enough to be themselves looking out for alternatives for what they are doing. And we should also be giving incentives, like he said, financial teaching, other alternate contractor management system. In one of the shoes companies, we were training people to be becoming foremen and assembling their own team and doing from work some job work. So they were automatically resigning from the company in group of 3 or 4, starting a one small unit from their houses and started doing job works. Because technology was changing. So when that ultimately that technology changed, and unit had to go out to the closer theory. And then we also need to find out the conspiracy theorists in the organization who keep creating a theories against management. And we all know that these people have some sort of identity crisis. And we need to address it. We need to identify them, create them, as he said, promote them to manager. If there are team leaders, they are coming with conspiracy theorists, let's put them into a better job on productivity management, on increasing production. Basically, we need to keep the IR machinery oiled. How? Some organization, they suddenly, when it comes to, strike one fine day after 5 years, 6 years, they suddenly say, oh, now let's transfer these people to other unit because they are troublemakers. And in last 5 years, they have not initiated any transfer order. First, they have forgotten the formats. They have not done it past. And the worker simply goes to court, says they, in last 3 years, they have never had a transfer. Today, when we are making, trouble, they are coming up with transfer letters. So this goes against the management. So our IR machinery should be oiled. We should be regularly doing transfers. We should be regularly making some punishments. Let them not be harsh punishment, but the process has to be there. A regular show cause, a regular, jisko file moti karna bolte hain, that should be, a system should be aware of what is happening inside and how it's to be done. A pilot run or a running system has to be in place. Another opportunity which we are now seeing is fixed term contracts. Fixed term contract looks good, but it is not as good as it appears. Even our CMs of certain states, they said, oh, it's easy. Let's replace all the contractor employees with fixed term contracts. It will be easy. We'll save on a contractor margin. It won't be difficult. We know that we all understand its benefits, that once we have everybody as on fixed term contract, the retrenchment and all these layoff and all these problems will be a thing of past. And it will also give us opportunity to restructure, make a business, like I have said, that we are a flexible business, changing fast with technology. So it will be a good idea. But the roadblock is the equal remuneration catch. What is the Equal Remuneration Catch? The Equal Remuneration Act earlier had no feet, but now it says that equal pay for work of similar nature. So that means if you have a machine operator on roll getting 95,000, you cannot have same machine operator on a contractor's role getting 15,000. More so with the new codes, the defining contractor employees as your employees, and you becoming dual employer of two employers, contractor as employer and principal employer as an employer. And then in equal, it says it it has to be equal opportunity and for chances of OT. You cannot say that contractor employees are cheaper for me, so let them work on 12-hour shift. My own employees are anyways getting 95. I offer them 8-hour shift. The own employees can also come. Okay, if you are putting them for 4 hours overtime, you also put us on a 4-hour overtime and pay us 95 into 2. You understand what I'm saying? 1,90,000 at the rate of 1,90,000, because it has to be doubles. And you see things going haywire once the new codes kick in, or once we do not remedy this in earlier. Standing orders. Standing orders, again, it has taken up to 300 numbers, but then interestingly, now contractor is also worker for that. Contractor workers are also worker for arriving at that 300 number. So that means, and once we don't have a contractor in the core employment and they are replaced with FTC, what happens? They are also counted for as 300. So we'll have standing order which are applying to contractors and to my employees. So there comes a vital question. So if contractor employees is my employee also, and even trade union act is covered under IR code, so can contractor employees also form a union in my organization? So far they cannot. So far they cannot. But if their employee under that becomes employee of a principal employer, can they come together? That needs to be seen. We also need to look at layoff. Layoff is a softer way out before retrenchment, where we say, okay, we pay you 50% for say 45 days. And after 45 days, when you're at home and you explore yourself, then we'll decide what to do. And some people staying at home at half the salary, and then we start retrenchment, because this layoff compensation gets adjusted in the retrenchment compensation itself. But there's a catch. This 45 days, up to 45 days is only if it is so agreed between the parties. That is, this has to be there either in the standing orders or in the employment letters. And if it is not so, you cannot take this. You cannot stop the layoff compensation after 45 days. Again, there is a catch here also, that you say, I don't want to retrench. I am in a catch-22 situation. There is a COVID outside, for example. Let me lay off you for 45 days. You'll get for 45 days and let it continue till COVID goes off. And let me see. And you need not pay actually as per this. So there are certain advantages which are there. Plus, if I give you an alternate employment, I need not pay you layoff compensation. And then interestingly, if there is a feeding unit which was making compressors and I am making ACs, and compressor unit goes on strike, because of which my main unit is not getting the enough material, and that section has no work to do, so I can lay off and I don't need to pay, because it is layoff on account of strike or slowdown in other section. Then for every retrenchment, now we have to send a notice that we know, and additional responsibility of having a reskilling fund of 15-day wages which need to be paid. Now we come to the actual topic of transfer of undertaking, mergers and acquisitions. There are two questions we have in mind. What happens to individual contract of employments once somebody else takes over my unit? What happens to collective bargaining agreements? Suppose union has an agreement that 5 years we will have an increment every year 30%. So what happens when third party takes over? Will it continue or not continue? So I have already written same benefits and Leonor job has to be maintained. No action adversely impacting the interest of employees has to be considered. Then there is an interesting thing, that question below. Can there be a tripartite agreement with both old and new employers? Well, we are just talking of our own employees, but when in certain companies, the contractor changes and same set of employees continue to work with the new contractor, isn't that a transfer of undertaking? Then in one case, the Supreme Court said, did you take consent of employees before changing the contractor? What was it? Don't you think we need a kind of transfer of undertaking notices for that also? And if we had signed a tripartite, these employees, if sign a tripartite agreement with the outgoing contractor and a new contractor, won't it be a good situation where we can avoid lots of litigation? So we come to the secret recipe. The secret recipe, as I could summarize from Mr. Malik's presentation, is one, we need to have a social dialogue. And social dialogue is not with something which is with workers. It is with supervisors also. Supervisors, those who are having identity crisis and are conspiracy theorists, and the managers who sometimes don't want to exit. They give all ideas, give internal information to workers. Oh, no, don't do it. This is what is actually management thinking. So we have a social dialogue with everybody. We have to keep everybody in tune with the mission visions of the management or organization. Another point which is very strict is that we need meticulously drafted legal notices, because law is like a mathematics. If we skip one step, the solution won't arrive. So that means that every procedure has to be followed without deviation in step by step. And we have to have a controlled timing of each step. And we have to be on top of everything, that when the notice has to go, has to go on 31st December or 1st December, because entire labor department will be on leave that time and will get deemed permission by 1st of January or 15th of January. Everything has to be in control. Even if you can even ask the person dealing hand to go on a leave for 15 days, jokingly. And the garnishing and sauce, once we have a recipe, we need also garnishing and sauce. Garnishing and sauce means VRS. VRS is basically ensuring predictable results by paying little extra and bypassing the unpredictability of law deciders. Any court, through the legal process, it is though predictable to a larger extent, but still there is unpredictability. Even if we get 3 dates or 3 months each, we go haywire. So VRS is anyways ensuring predictable results. And a skilled negotiator in-house who is ready to close with a win-win-win. I have coined this new term. We have heard win-win. I have said win-win-win. Win-win-win is employee, old employer, new employer. Win-win-win settlement. And then HR department, who was recruiting so far, in case of closure or transfer or people not willing to go on to new unit, can take a role of a placement agency. Why not help workers get a job elsewhere? Not only for ethical imaging, but also for the social goodwill for the long run. So let me sum it up. Be ready to cook and let brainstorm with the teams. Be ready with preservatives, recipes, garnishing, and sauce. That's what I need to say.
Thank you. Thanks, Zorawar. I hope
Ankit ji.
Zorawar, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Zorawar, first of all, thanks for the presentation. You and Anupam sir both mentioned two common aspects. One is social dialogue and another is VRS. So when we say social dialogue, is this an exercise one should only take when we are doing any action which involves retrenchment, laying off, acquisition, transfer, or it's an ongoing exercise? And if it's an ongoing exercise, what should be the key aspect one should keep in mind while engaging in social dialogue?
Let me put it, as I said, social dialogue requires a full session because I have done a lot of research on this and I've practically gone through, been with a lot of organizations who did it. This is actually an ongoing process. Let me put it in short, that starting with the product, ending up with the happiness of the families of the workers, it's a straight line, but actually it is not. Practically, you have not only your variation in the raw material, working of the factory, everywhere you have issues. If day to day, communication, transparent and objective way of handling things is made, then there'll be no problem. And this social dialogue, once we have a habit of being transparent and objective, and you put these issues before the workers and you involve them that, okay, this has happened and now we are in trouble, we have to do this and this is the solution. make them own and agree with the solution which is provided. So it is a whole session which is required separately. People in the HR fraternity know what is social dialogue, but then structured social dialogue, you need a separate session for that. But it's a sufficient hint that you have to be straight, communicative, objective communication with the workers, and then only you can achieve results. And the results are magical, I can tell you, much more than you can achieve through the law or by bulldozing or whatever you may call it, manipulation or playing a game of chess. Social dialogue has produced results which are magical because the workers own they own the decision, so they'll obviously agree with it.
Thank you. Another important point you mentioned is about VRS. So what key factors one should keep in mind while designing a VRS?
You see, firstly, the baseline is the 15 days compensation which is provided under section 25F. Now, nobody is going to accept compensation like that. If we are talking of VRS, it is definitely above the compensation amount. And I said that in between that 45 days figure was taken from the Western countries where the law provides for actual compensation at the rate of 45 days wages per annum worked. But now, public sector, you did it, once upon a time, you talk about 10 years ago, they did it. But it's not working in the private sector, it doesn't work. I have seen the success of 45 days also, but it was not much. 60 days was better, 75 days was more. But average, which is on the higher side, MNCs are offering 90 days. And I don't want to name the companies, they have even given 108 days per annum work. So it has to be a very calculated move. Again, I said that if you have noticed that I said there has to be a mapping, HR mapping, designation, age, wage, stage. What is their age? Are they at the fag end of their career or at the beginning? Now, if you are telling then which area do they belong to? If I have a factory here and there is a Bihari worker who's 45, 50 years of age, I tell him you have to take a VRS. Well, saab, paisa aur de do saab. He'll ask for more money, that's all, but he'll go. But if there is a local worker, he's 50 years of age and nothing doing, ईंट से ईंट बजा देंगे, ये कैसे हो जाएगा, हमारा रोजगार छीन रहे हो, वो नहीं, he will not agree with it. Now on the other hand, there's a young man who's qualified. Tell him, see, तुमने डिप्लोमा कर रखा है, तुमने ITI कर रखा है, तुम ये पैसा भी लो और नौकरी भी लो. You help him out. So this is a HR mapping which you have to do. There are two types. One is the skill mapping. The competence mapping is a different one. But here the strategic HR mapping is for this purpose, for HR restructuring, is entirely different. And you have to take into account many other factors on a matrix which is dominant. And then that's how you have to do it. The people, most of people actually, the subconscious, we actually do that only. Whatever I've said, these factors are always there. But if you put it on a matrix in a table form, it works. Then things are more visible.
Thank you.
And as I said, yes.
I have received some questions even before the program and during the program. So I'll take the questions received during the program. So this is first question is, in case of retrenchment, full and final settlement sent through NEFT, is it deemed to be a good practice legally, as the workers hardly get a chance to refuse?
You see, let me be frank that this is a legal provision. Retrenchment is a retrenchment. It's not a good one because 15 days annum compensation wages per annum worked is not really good. And a company, look at the employer side. An employer is not closing down or retrenching out of fun. He's retrenching out of compulsion. Otherwise, if he is doing some strategic restructuring, he will obviously offer a VRS. Retrenchment is a poor employer's job. That at the end of the day, okay, that's the last thing I can offer. So retrenchment is it. Retrenchment is a threat. If there is a union or there's some resistance inside for taking VRS, okay, the last day you get retrenchment. If you don't take VRS now, At the end of the month, you get retrenchment. So they'll take it.
I have already summarized in my comments.
One minute. Do that.
I have already summarized in my comments that right to do business is my inherent right, and right to do away with the redundant manpower is also my inherent right, which I have put in my slide.
Okay. So next question is with respect to the functional director issue, wherein the terms of reference are governed by a standard format as per the DP guidelines. Now, if the administrative ministry makes some changes in the standard format to the detriment of the director, is it feasible for the company to contest the same?
Sorry, just say that again. In the first part, the first sentence was not audible.
Functional directors, where they have a defined terms of reference by way of a DPE guidelines. So if these administrative ministry make changes in the standard format, where terms are changed in a manner detrimental to the director, can company contest the same?
Yes. You cannot take anybody by surprise. That's simple law. Principles of natural justice, let me define them. First of all, equity. You have to have balance, equal opportunity. Then is adi alterum partem. It is very easy to talk about, principles of natural justice, but I have told you, spelled out the words in this. First is equity, fairness, equal opportunity. And the second is adi alterum partem. Hear the other party. Before making any change, did the authority give an opportunity of being heard that this is the change I am going to make? No. Then the whole thing goes. It can be contested and it will be struck down. Sure.
Another question, that in case the unit is closed for 3-4 years and then taken over by another management, the workers were not paid as per law and the order is silent on the workers. What could be the best way to deal with this situation, as the workers are just waiting for the unit to restart?
No, technically, it will be governed by the terms of the agreement to sell. If the agreement to sell says that the new employer will be liable for all the, will be responsible for all the liabilities of the company, then the new employer will. In the case of Jet Airways, why are they not taking over? They tried to, make a quick one and take over the company and get rid of the. Whereas, as I said, Navrati's case, it is a whole goodwill. It's a brand. Even if they throw the people out, they cannot. They cannot.
Let me add something, sir.
So Zorawar has something to say.
So the question is that can we bypass the closure and VRS by simply retrenching people first and do our company empty and then ask somebody else to take it over and hire fresh employees? So this is a rephrasing of a question. As I said that in this particular setup, if I am doing it to restart the company, those people will have first right to be rehired, which will get translated if it is through a regular process of retrenchment. Because the company goes in totality, you cannot just bypass the law by throwing away people, then selling to somebody. A transfer of undertaking without giving them an opportunity to have a lien of job with a new person.
Okay.
Sir.
So the next question is the National Safety Act, which provides for provision of engaging contractual workers in core sectors, as you also mentioned, Aditya sir. Is it applicable to this sector in terms of research association wherein major workforce are scientists?
Your voice is breaking. Your voice is breaking.
Okay, I'll repeat.
Repeat the question.
As per the Occupational Safety Act code, which provides for provision of engaging contractual workforce in core sectors. You
Yes.
also
Core functions, yes.
Is it applicable to a service sector, say in terms of a research association, wherein the major workforce are scientists, and as per the policy of the company, all staff has to be employed on a contractual career path only?
No. let me put it very simply. You need to read section 2P of the Occupational Safety Code. It is not that the contract labor is banned. No, it is not banned. There is no provision for contract labor. The provision for contract labor is in non-core functions only, which have been defined. The definition of what is 2P? It is actually definition of core functions. Core function means every function of the directly or indirectly of the employment, but will not include this. 7 or 8 options are there. If this is there, it is not core function. You say now the contractual. You see, outsource. Call it outsource. Don't call it contract. Contract is fixed term also. That is a different thing. How do you manage this? Let Robert has to say something about it.
So that means that if we have an insurance company who's having entire Salesforce marketing outsourced to a third-party payroll vendor, will it not be doing a core business? And for that matter, if we have government employees on contractual roles doing government's work of making RCs and driving licenses, isn't that a core work of government? And if core work is not allowed, it is not allowed. I believe that is why all the governments and CMs are running and announcing that they will, regularize, put them on a fixed term. It could be the similar phenomena that they know that this has to come today or tomorrow.
When you say contractual labor, does it mean contractual labor?
Yes.
Contractual labor or just engaging an employee on a professional contract?
Yes, exactly that I said. Professional contract is a separate thing, and that is where what Zarafar said was he elaborated the fixed term employment. That you can't simply sweep around that, okay, this is a fixed term contract. You have to define it in a letter of engagement. You have to say that, which actually has been used for a long time in the service sector, yes, but now you can do it across the in any business establishment. Distinguish between outsourcing through a third party or engagement. Now they made it simple. Now what he said, Rawar said, was they are aware of the impending danger, because in the government you have 50% people through contractor. This is a poor show, you see, and now they want to put them on a fixed term contract. Let us see what they have to say.
In addition, let me add that the new Social Security Code, earlier EPF Act was not has no definition of a word contractor. So it was principal to principal. So even contractor was depositing PF and principal employer was happy with it. But the new Social Security Code defines contractor as contractor in the Act itself and says that contractor's money has to be deposited with the principal employer by the principal employer. So the question is, if that all thing has to be done, so why we still looking for escape routes through employing through a third party? We have to today or tomorrow to reduce the rigmarole of the new processes, keeping the records this way, and then be unaware of the liabilities, regularize and go through a fixed term method which they have already given us.
Next question is, can a company a worker who takes sue that he asked to
Sorry, your voice crackled again.
a worker who is adopting a VRS, can he
Yes.
sue on the basis that he was forced to adopt the thing?
Yes, this was a case of Maruti decided in the Supreme Court. They said that earlier, you did not have direct payment, you had checks. So he argued vehemently that no, I was forced to accept the VRS. He says, okay, even if we take your argument for that you were compelled to take VRS, who compelled you to encash the check? You have not come here. Did you lodge an FIR that I have been forced to accept a VRS or forced to sign some papers to accept the VRS? No. You have not put a FIR on this. And then who forced you to accept the check, encash it? So it came crashing on against the worker. More or less, these gimmicks don't work. There are unions and notorious people who have tried stunts on this, and it did not work. They failed in the court. You just can't change sides. You have accepted a VRS, you accepted it, you've taken the money, go. That's it.
Okay. Some other questions is, what is the role of skill mapping in business re-engineering?
You see, business re-engineering, you have to see whether you can utilize the existing workforce. No, if you cannot. For example, there is a skill, there's a competence. What is their level? First of all, the education, then the learning quotient. How much a worker has learned a particular skill. I can show you matriculates who are operating CNCs, and I can show you engineers who cannot operate a CNC. Today, we are talking of business. Everybody has to be a business manager. Nobody can say, I'm a company secretary or I'm a HR manager, I'm this, I'm that. No. Everybody has to be a business manager first. Am I getting the results? Is a person capable of shifting out? Suppose he is a very good technical person. Can I take him to another point? Is he flexible enough in his skills to adapt to some other workstation? If not, then I am, as I said, business process re-engineering is a different from technological introductions. Sometimes it's a mix. The business process re-engineering, as I said, that they say, I'm not going to make plastic stuff finished. Somebody else will make it. I don't make compressors, somebody else will do it. And the new technologies come, the freezer, somebody else is going to make it. So then they offloaded three main areas of working, and the workforce was brought down. Now I am talking of a garment unit who was making fancy packing for garments. And suddenly the buyer says, no, I am paying for transportation of packing material. No, I don't want any packing material. I don't want fancy packing. Fancy packing I will make in Europe or somewhere in Russia or Indonesia or whatever location. I'll make the fancy packing in the locally. I don't want your, and whereas the original was this, or suddenly the buyer says, no, I don't want your garment in a plastic bag. I want it in a fancy packing. So then he will have to set up a product line for another line for putting the garment in a fancy packaging. Now I put it the other way around. Maruti was through some very bad time in 2000. The quality engineers were asked to report to at the point of the vendor and check the quality there. The quality has to be good and the best at the first point. And the vendors were asked to supply the components online. Now that was a complete change for the vendor and a total change for the Maruti. Why? Because they had to come through a strike. That's a business process re-engineering completely. Then similarly, this was a bad situation which they had to come out of, and they successfully did it. But in business, the kind of changes, the technology, and so many things happening, because now today you have a concept of supply chain. Everyone is making not everything. A car is made by so many components supplied by others. It is not only a refrigerator now as a car or a two-wheeler. So the way things are supplied, or who is making it? Suppose somebody is supplying a mirror, a rear view mirror. So somebody is supplying, the manufacturer of a glass mirror is separate. He's only buying a glass mirror. But the rest of the assembly, and he's buying a rod with a nut bolt assembly and putting a plastic on and supplying it to the two-wheeler manufacturer. So now we have supply chains everywhere. You have the complex and business process re-engineering is a every day. Anytime you can have a change where, because you have to do what you can the best, outsource the rest. If I am losing money somewhere, I'll change the process. Simple as that. Every penny counts. Right. I think you muted us. One second. 1 minute. You shut off. I think you're not audible. One sec. Uh-huh. Something wrong here.
माइक्रोफोन ऑफ कर दो सर आप
Okay.
माइक्रोफोन हटा दो
One sec. Ankit, there is a problem here. You had unmute. No, still not. Still.
He's mute. Mr. Ankit is mute.
Ankit, you are mute.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Now, fine. Now it's okay.
I'm sorry. So, in case of retrenchment and closure, where we need to apply for government approval under relevant laws,
Yes. Yeah.
what are the key bottlenecks one should keep in mind and how to avoid that?
First thing is that keeping the people aware of whatever is happening is the groundwork, but paperwork is very important. You have to at least have the record of past 3 years that there were losses and we can't run it anymore. Or if you are retrenching for stoppage of stopping a particular process, that partial closure or partial rearrangement, the work has reduced, so I'm retrenching, or a process has been out, or I'm completely closing down the unit. Then you have to have 3 years record of losses plus the efforts made to revive the unit, make it more profitable. And there have been cases where I will not use the name, but there was a textile agency, textile manufacturing unit. They said we can't invest in upgradation of the machinery. We need this many crore of rupees, 200 crores. The bank is not going to finance me. So I have no choice but to close down. So business is not there, costing is not there, upgradation is not possible. So I have no choice but to close down, and the losses are accumulating. And tomorrow I may not be having even the basic land and building with me. The banks will take it over and you will get nothing. So there have been times when the government rejected it, but in the High Court, the company went. That is why I said again, the law is supportive. That if we have the papers in place, the record in place, that these are compelling circumstances for retrenchment and closure, and the government rejects the this application, you have the High Court to you have the remedy.
So, thanks, Anupam sir and Mr. Rawat. This was the last question for the day. And thanks for the enlightening discussion from both of you. And it's a very important and interesting topic that we kept for today. I hope we keep similar topics on labor laws and HR related issues in future. I'll thank all the participants for staying, and our next webinar, that is the 104th webinar, will be on business value enhancement through M&A and restructuring. So we'll see you next Friday. Till then, goodbye.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Robert.